Welcome, everybody, to Surprised by Art with Luke and Kirk. And today we're going to be talking about a popular film that's coming out. And we're going to be talking about a characteristic of this popular film character and something that I think is interesting to all of us. I'm avoiding saying it because I want Luke to introduce the topic. I like it when Luke introduces it. But so just so you guys know, my name is Kirk. I'm the editor-in-chief of troubadourmag.com. That's Troubadour Magazine. And my co-host is Luke Travers. And Luke, why don't you tell us what you're working on? And then maybe you can introduce the topic for us.
Just a quick correction there on the introduction. My name is Travers, Luke Travers.
What did I say?
Oh my goodness, this is starting off well if you don't get a James Bond reference right off the bat.
Oh, I was like, did I say like Smith or Luke,
all right,
Evers or something? Like I thought I actually said the name wrong. You struck at my confidence in my introduction. And now
sounds like you need a little
bit
of James Bond in your life.
Okay.
Well, Kirk, I'm glad to be here talking about James Bond. Didn't realize how much I like James Bond until I started thinking about this movie coming up. And so when we're talking about the topic for James Bond, confidence is a big word that came up. And then I suggested throwing in a little bit of another adjective right in front of that. Sexy confidence.
Sexy confidence.
You say better than I. Sexy confidence. So we could talk a little bit about what that means for us, but I feel like everything that I associate with James Bond oozes sexuality, oozes masculinity, oozes chemistry. And so I'm curious about exploring that with you and what makes him feel that way. I
want to explore your sexuality too much. Is that what the show's about? Exploring Luke's sexuality?
But
I know what you're talking about.
We might get into some personal stuff here, which I think will be great.
But I think a lot of us know what you're talking about with confidence, James Bond, and sexuality. I mean, he's known for that as James Bond. Just so you guys know, the movie is the new James Bond movie coming out, which we haven't seen, but we're both going to go see it as soon as we can. And the topic is sexy self-confidence. So that's the topic, is sexy self-confidence. Now, I wanted to start, Luke, with an actual conversation. I love looking up words. I went up and looked up the word confident just to give myself some examples. And, so before I get into before we talk about what sexy self-confidence might mean, I thought for me, it was helpful to talk about just what is confidence? Like, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
Right. In a concrete, specific way. And I don't know, I have the actual definition, but I was
read it to us, Kirk.
I was going to ask you your thoughts before I read it. So basically the broad definition is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something, firm trust. So, I think about having confidence that this bridge is not going to collapse, right? So that's actually confidence, is that my car's not going to.
Okay, so that's something that's external to you. So what we're focusing on with James Bond is the self-confidence, something that's internal to him.
Well, so
he can rely on himself. So self-esteem is big there.
Well, self-esteem, I would say, is different, but confidence. So I actually think of it as in two levels. And I'm just talking about it abstractly, right?
Yes, this is pretty abstract. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's confidence in bridges. There's confidence in external things. But there's confidence in friends. Like, can I rely on somebody if I say?
But that's not what we're talking about with James Bond.
No, I know, but you have to get to what first. You have to understand what confidence is before you can really understand.
I got confidence. So now James Bond.
So relying on a friend to be able to take care of your dog. I have firm trust that Luke will not let my dog die. Now the question is, how do you have how does that apply to yourself? Yeah. Right. How do you think about yourself? Well, externally, it makes sense. I have a firm trust. Internally, you can have an unfirm trust in yourself to do, in my view, two fundamental ways. One, with a particular skill. So think about a 10-year veteran in computer programming.
Okay.
If I give him a job, even if it's a challenging job in computer programming, he probably has, because of his experience, a lot of confidence in his ability to take on that job, to do a new computer programming job. Like he has firm trust because he's done it a lot. Take that same computer programmer, put him in a bar and ask him to get girls' numbers. He may not have as much confidence. So he has less confidence in himself. This is a different kind of confidence. This is a confidence out in is self-confidence in your ability to take on new tasks and do well in things that you're not as versed in. Does that make sense? That's how I look at
that makes sense.
Self-confidence.
Yeah.
And now James Bond has both in a lot of things. That's why you could throw him in a new situation, give him a new tool. Q gives him some new fancy tool and he's like playing around with it. He's shooting it off. He's driving some. He can take on anything. You give him some new skill. He's got to learn how to dance. He's got to learn a new language. Anything you give him, he knows.
He's got this confidence as an ability to master a lot of different tasks, from wooing women to driving a speedboat through the Thames.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So usually I would like to talk about the concept first, but I want to talk about James Bond because this is where it's coming from, this topic, and it's oozing from James Bond. So I want to ask you, Kirk, what are your memories of James Bond? When did you start watching? Do you have any particular fond moments from James Bond movies? What's your relationship history to him?
Well, so I don't know if I'm particularly slanted by him. I do admire his confidence, and I do see that as like the model for ultimate masculine confidence, just the ability to master any environment.
Well, when you think of James Bond, are there any particular movies or scenes, or what movies have you seen? Have you seen all of them? Or
I've seen a lot of them. There are a few of the older ones I haven't seen. I mean, I've seen the Sean Connery ones, of course. I grew up on the oh man, I just forgot his name. The good-looking one from
Roger Moore.
No, I like Roger
Pierce
Moore
Brosnan.
well, yes, the Pierce Brosnan goofy ones, but I actually liked them because I was a kid. They were they were the first ones.
Yeah.
But he was a little too maybe effeminate in certain ways. My favorite one now is definitely Daniel Craig. I do like Daniel Craig because he has the way they portrayed him, especially like a Casino Royale right out of the gate as just this, strong. He's physically strong. Actually,
you're
capable.
Thinking of the scene of him coming out of the water on the beach where you see those abs.
No, that's what you're thinking of. I'm thinking about him like running through a wall and to get that guy. You're right. Yeah. Like when he's chasing that little, parkour effeminate guy who's like dancing all around. He's just like boom, barrel through stuff.
No.
Well, we got to differentiate somehow. Don't be shy. So that's
how I call him a bomb maker. That's how I differentiate. So
okay.
All right. So it sounds like you had your relationship with James Bond was Pierce Brosnan.
Starting off,
yeah, and
it was 90s.
And then you really like Daniel Craig. I think for me, and I was reflecting back on this, it was my mom that introduced me to James Bond back when I was a kid, and I just remember my mom not liking Roger Moore as much as Sean Connery, and I'd grown up watching the Roger Moore ones, and I was thinking, whoa, why Roger Moore is so sophisticated and the hair is so great and he's so suave. That was my James Bond, but my mom had hers, which was Sean Connery, and she loved him. And it was just astonishing to me that my mom had this sexual attraction to James Bond, and I was witnessing this, a side of my mom I didn't know. So I'm seeing this, and it's really unusual and for me to have that. So that through my mom's eyes of seeing this man and being attracted to him, I got a sense from her, wow, he's a strong sexual figure. And then for me, I started kind of here and there watching the James Bond movies. And I just remember scenes like James Bond, especially with the women. I don't remember which movie it is, but there's one in which at the very end of the movie, like the military is like, hey, James Bond, do you need rescuing? And he's on a little raft somewhere out in the middle of the Atlantic or somewhere, and with the girl, and he just turns off the radio. Yeah. He obviously needs rescuing, but instead nope, he's going to make love to this woman right here on this little life raft in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, away from everybody. And that still strikes me. That still strikes me from, I don't know, I saw that when I was 11 or 12. But that kind of, it doesn't matter, nothing matters except right now, I'm going to make love to you. Yeah. So that's kind of my relationship, and ever since I've kind of watched it. But James Bond hasn't really been in the hierarchy of my, like, the heroes that I want to emulate or those that I want to channel. But I'm starting to see a little bit more of how I might want to do that. Kirk, I'm curious. Have you ever felt like James Bond before?
Well, I guess, like, if you're talking about the kind of confidence that I was trying to get at earlier.
Yeah,
absolutely. There are times in social situations when I feel like I'm, the center of things because maybe I put it together an event, or I was, I think I'm particularly good at working a room. Actually, it's something I've developed.
I've seen you do it.
I think, yeah. So I definitely feel confident in those regards. There's sometimes when I don't feel confidence in social situations, actually.
No, don't tell me about those. But do you have any moments where you like?
Well, you definitely need differentiation, but I mean, yeah, like just working a room. Like I said, I'm in conferences. I have a lot of experience doing that. I'm very confident with that. On the phone, I can get very confident in sales conversations. Mm-hmm. Writing, well, actually, when I'm in the mode of writing, it feels like there's a kind of confidence that takes over. And then public speaking, actually, something that or podcasting, like I feel on top of the world. I feel like, I could do whatever I can play jazz and go crazy in different directions, and I feel completely confident I can get us back on track and have no problem.
Kirk, may I ask you a question that makes you kind of uncomfortable?
We'll see. Yeah.
So here's the question. When do you feel sexy?
Well, it definitely does not make me feel uncomfortable. So one of the times I feel sexy personally, I don't know if that many people agree around me, but I think I feel is when I'm actually lifting massive weights at the gym. And I like I'm doing what, there are studs 10 years younger than me. They can't even come close, not only to the weight, but the number of reps. Like I'm just kicking everyone's butt. And I just love it. Right. So that's one time when I'm like, I sit next to this guy who's like this, big old muscular dude. And he's like, pushing up 225 and I go in there 360 or something. Like, and, and I just like, boom, dude. And there's just something like, there's something,
there you go. I like that.
There is a kind of like, yeah, I got that. Again, public speaking is definitely another one because I'm, again, the center of attention. And I think there's something about that, which, makes me think of James Bond as well, because when he walks into a room, people notice, right? Like when he walks into like the casino at Casino Royale or something, or, the people look around and they see him, and the women instantly notice him. What about you?
Well, I'm going to answer that in just one moment.
Oh man.
But what I like to do is, as you're talking about, like, I'll have, I love that. I love the pumping iron example of your field, because confidence, sexiness, that's a great one. But I want to share, you brought up like what happens when James Bond enters into a room. And that made me think, there are a couple of scenes, I was like exploring some of the James Bond movies a little bit. Dr. No, the first one, like the first introduction to James Bond that we have. Yeah. And then the first Daniel Craig movie, the one that you brought up with him coming out of the water with his abs showing.
I did not bring that up. I mean, that's a cool scene. He's a good looking dude. I have no problem.
But that one, I revisited that one. And you like Pierce Brosnan, but there were two images that come to mind, and that kind of stand for me as this is what sexy, sophisticated, stylish, suave, dashing James Bond looks like to me. And the first one is that opening scene with James Bond. And you hear that all the time, but I went back and watched that opening scene, and it's like, oh, I never knew the context for that. And the context is it's a little repartee with this woman across the table that he's winning money against in this betting game. And he asks her, you're a brave woman, or you have a lot of courage, miss. And she responds, Trench, Sally Trench. And then she says, you have a lot of luck, Mr. and he looks at her and he says, Bond, James Bond.
Ooh.
So that initial name introduction of himself is one where he is just playing a little bit of a banter with this beautiful woman that he's gonna, ask out. Now, the scene that sticks in my mind, the image that sticks in my mind, happens just a few moments later when James Bond is called to action and he's got to go pick up his money from the casino desk, and he's leaning on the counter, completely suave, as if he's just taking the scene in. In actuality, what he's doing is he's asking her out. And
does he ask her?
Oh yes, he asks her, but no,
okay.
but maybe he doesn't ask her.
That's what I was gonna say.
He says, "Do you play golf?
Yeah.
How about
James
a game
Bond.
tomorrow?" Well, he does kind of ask her.
Okay,
he does, but
right,
it feels like he's not asking her.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's not even having a conversation with a woman they're asking her out. It feels like he's just totally casual. Oh, I've got the image because I really like that image, and I'll share it on my screen here so you can kind of get a glimpse of it. All right, you see that?
Oh yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie. Forgot how young he was.
Now he's just leaning his elbow back and he's got his tuxedo on. And the little tidbit that I like that's added in there, he's got a wad of money in his hands that he's just picked up. That's her money that he just won off of her. And so here he's about to give her his card and say, "Yep, excellent, call me in the morning." So that's one scene, that kind of casual elegance and sophistication that he exudes.
Why do you think he exudes that? What is it? Can you get more specific? What do you think it is about? Because I agree. I think there's something about what he's doing that we can all emulate.
Yeah. Here's how you like differentiation, Kirk. Here's how I might differentiate. If I were in this situation, I would not have the casual elegance and leaning back self-confidently like that. I would be nervous.
Well, how might that nervousness manifest itself in your body?
I would not even be there. For me in my body, it would be like,
oh no.
Yeah, I would be, I would have an affected look at trying to be calm and casual.
Yeah.
So there's one other scene that,
and there's a lot of like body things that people will do, like touching their hands.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He's like, he doesn't do any of that stuff. He's so like, what I love about him and the way he's portrayed by the best of the actors is that his hands, he's very comfortable with where his hands are. He doesn't need to put them in his pockets. He doesn't touch the back of his neck. He's just like, which are all pacifying body language behaviors. He's just and his suit can move a little bit with him. And, if you have like a really good suit, he doesn't like keep adjusting it because again, it's a complete confidence in his body and the way that it is. So, like if you have a little bit of a gut, you might like pull out like that. If you've ever, like that's kind of unconfident, right? He doesn't have that. He's like, he could be naked, right? Like he could be naked right now. It'd be the same thing. It'd be just like this, right?
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. And you are certainly a master of the body language reading as you read the room and get a sense of of everybody that you're talking to. So yeah, absolutely. Now there's another scene, and that's one where he's again in a tuxedo. It's hard not to see James Bond in a tuxedo. It seems like he's born with it. You think of him as naked. He could be naked or he could be in a tuxedo, but there's nothing in between.
Well, he could be in a scuba gear. He could be in a commando gear.
Sometimes I see that, but that's not the way I picture him. That's not and the way I picture him, another image I have, and it's a silly kind of image, but it's one that's stuck in my mind when I was just thinking of what does James Bond looks like. It's one where Pierce Brosnan, he's in his suit, tuxedo, and he's in a tank, driving a tank, crashing a tank through some city.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, you remember that? It's just such a wild contrast to have that stylishness with that militarism going on around. And that's the sense I get a lot. There's a like in this preview for this upcoming movie, there's a scene where James Bond jumps onto a train or like it gets torn off and he comes on the end. And the first thing he does after, of course, he's in his tuxedo, first thing he does is he adjusts his cuffs. So like he's walking into a ballroom or a drawing room or the casino salon. So here, just if you wanted to see that image.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to see it. the old. I mean, he definitely, and it's interesting. So he's in a suit, not as much a tux.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's interesting, just that old, like, especially in our casual culture today. Looking back on these seems kind of quaint, but I don't know. Like, I'm starting to go into a suit phase.
Oh,
And there's
you
just
are?
oh yeah, like I just bought my first. I brought it to Ocon. I bought my first custom suit. So I had a suit made, and there's something
Oh,
special about
yeah.
it.
That's why you're talking about having a good fit and all that.
Yeah, the good fit
Okay,
is just
okay,
something different,
perfect,
and like
perfect.
having it
So
made for
when
yeah.
yeah, so this is you feeling like James Bond with your new suit at the conference.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. And I think there's something to that. Like, there's something about like when you dress well for your body, you feel better and you're more confident just in
Oh
general.
yeah, when I
It's
put on a
just more
fedora
sexy.
hat, I'm Indiana Jones. When I put on my
Yeah, there you go.
sunglasses, I'm Hawk. No, not Hawkeye. Maverick from Top Gun.
There you
Yeah,
go.
they're
Yeah.
just little tidbits like this
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I like Halloween. Halloween's coming up. I love dressing up. I
Love it.
love role playing, in more ways than one. But
Ladies, it's an invitation right there. Sexy
but
self-confidence
speaking
right
of,
there.
yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about that because you asked me about, when have I felt like James Bond?
Yeah.
And I've got a couple, one a bigger instance and one just a smaller little instance, and then I'll talk. And I've got another question. The next question I'm going to ask you is, when have you felt like you needed James Bond? But let me tell you, there's one instance where I really felt like, oh, this is James Bond. It just happens to be the one time in my life that I've worn a tuxedo. And this was a couple of years ago at a gala put on by the museum I used to work at. And I was responsible for having put together and helped create this exhibition experience that combined music with the art. And this was being unveiled the night of the gala. And so this was a kind of culmination of, oh, here's something that I've been working on a lot. And then I was also going to have a responsibility that night to make sure things are working. There's a lot of tech stuff that's going on, and I'm doing it all in my tuxedo, and I'm doing this kind of checking on things, making sure things work on the one hand, then join my girlfriend at the bar, then going back and checking, then join her in dancing and getting photos taken by fashion magazines and all kinds of stuff. And it was like this combination of style, of just luxurious enjoyment, of feeling efficacious, of like fixing things while I'm looking good. So I felt like James Bond in that instance, more than just having a tuxedo on. So that's one instance, and that I've got. And then just on a little smaller scale, to kind of, it just popped into my mind as I was thinking about this, was just last week I went to the symphony, and my date and I were both looking real nice. And we come out of the symphony and we decide, oh, we're going to just go for a walk. And we just go for a walk downtown. And we're looking good. And then we're in the middle of downtown with bars and people walking. And we start to see other people who have been to the symphony. And I start to notice and realize, oh, wow, I really enjoy seeing others who were at the symphony who are also in gowns, in suit jackets, just in the middle of town, and feeling like, wow, they look suave, they look sophisticated, they look beautiful, they look stylish, and just part of kind of the everyday night that's going on there. So I was feeling that way with my date there, just walking along, and then seeing others. And that gave me a sense that that's James Bondish. That's James Bondish, to have that kind of, I am stylish no matter what the circumstances are, whether it's just walking downtown after a symphony or driving a tank through New York City. So those two, are just little instances of how I felt like James Bond. Now, when have you needed James Bond?
Well, let me see. So I think sometimes in the lead up to events, that's when, whether it's an event I'm putting on or an event that I'm speaking at or an event that I'm, organizing. So I've been organizing a lot of events. Sometimes I get a little more nervous during those periods, during not once the event starts, I'm on and I'm good to go. And I'm, just my mind is focused and I'm trying to make sure that everything's running smoothly, and that's great. But sometimes in the lead up, or even just prepping for it, that's even like while waiting at the event or something, and like, is the right person going to show up? Is this going to happen? I sometimes have these kind of self doubts about things that I think would be nice to have, some more confidence in. And there's so like, lead up to events, lead up to a launch of something, like anytime there's I've been working on something and I'm trying to put it out there, I think there's certain self-doubts that James Bond would never have. Like, he seems to be calm, cool, and collected at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Even, right before a gun battle, he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be ready to go. He's prepared for a fight to the death at any
Mm-hmm.
time. Like, there's that scene in Casino Royale that is, I think, what makes that movie so interesting is he's like, he's playing this high stakes poker, like super high stakes poker. What is it, like $1 million?
I've been at a poker table with you.
Yeah, you and I were at a poker table. That was not high stakes poker. Although I definitely did show my not cool, because I was like, I don't know if you remember, but I was like, come on, man, this is a tournament. Let's go. Our dealer was so slow, and I was like, oh man. So I actually got a little nervous there. It was not James Bond cool. I was like, come on, we got to get going. So anyway, there was, the scene in James Bond Casino Royale where he's like going out and, he's high stakes poker. And then he goes, there's a break because it's like a long tournament. And, he's attacked to the death by some people. He has this like really cool fight scene in the stairwell and basically kills this guy. And then he like, he like then sits in the shower with the lady because she's freaking out. Penny, I think it is, Money Penny. And then, he goes back up, he puts on his clothes again, goes back up, and he's good to go. And I just thought, like, in any situation, the buildup, he has like no self-doubt in himself. Even when he's like poisoned, right? And he's like he's like completely as calm as you can be in various situations, even in a single day.
Yeah.
So I like that. Like,
all
so
right.
me, like, I could be confident, like I said, on the moment, like I'll be freaking out a little bit ahead of time. Right. He would not be freaking out at all. Right.
So Kirk, I don't know if you notice about me, but I like to channel, like I'm a medium, channel certain literary figures to try to help me in different situations in my life. So I like to channel. Oh, we talked about Ted Lasso a few weeks back on the podcast. I like to channel Ted Lasso when I'm in a classroom. I like to channel Indiana Jones. We talked about Indiana Jones earlier this summer. I like to channel Indiana Jones when I'm off on a trip. Like if I'm feeling like, oh man, I'm too tired, jet lagged. What would Indiana Jones do now? Well, he would go off on an adventure and go find stuff. I like to channel Atticus Finch. Atticus Finch, gracious yet principled. When I'm stepping into a business meeting or having a serious conversation with my family, I want to be gracious. I want to be understanding. I want to be polite. And at the same time, I want to remain the core of who I am. So I channel these different people for different situations. I don't think I channel James Bond for teaching my junior high students. There was a particular time when I want to channel.
When they're going crazy. It's like, I want to be cool.
Well, maybe a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I think, Ted Lasso would, that's how I channel.
He has that as well.
Yeah, exactly. But the moments when I feel like I want to channel James Bond, women interacting with potential romantic partners, interacting with romantic partners, being in social situations. Can I give you one little story?
Yeah, of course. No.
So when I
hear this.
The summer kind of was a summer of like getting out and doing things. A lot of road trips, a lot of dance floors for me this summer. And earlier this summer, dance. I like to dance.
Oh, good.
That's the difference between me and James Bond. I don't really see James Bond dancing unless he's doing a waltz. I like to go out and like dance expressively.
Yeah.
But I was on the dance floor.
Well, that is expressive for him.
Sure. But I was on the dance floor, and what was happening was I was like enjoying myself, dance with several girls, and then across the room I see a stunning, tall, blonde in a red dress. And my first thought was, wow. My second thought was, out of my league. And I'm there, but as the evening goes along, I'm starting to pick up maybe a couple of hints that she's got it getting close. Maybe might want to dance, but I don't know. And the thing I did not do was think to myself, what would James Bond do in this situation? I wish I had, because what I told myself was, nope, I've got my self-doubts, I've got my insecurities. I'm having fun. It's a good night. I don't want to ruin it by being rejected.
What? Oh, go ahead.
And I didn't. But what I wish was that was a moment where I could have used channeling James Bond, where I would have thought to myself, okay, how would have James Bond have approached the situation? Not what he would have done, but what would have been the mindset? Can I get to kind of that feeling? And
well, what do you think that would have been?
The feeling?
The mindset, the feeling, and then as a secondary option, what do you think he would have done in that situation?
Oh, I don't know if I'm not. I think he would just gone up and maybe subtly invited her to dance. But I think the mindset would have been one where I'm completely nonchalant, self-possessed, without focusing in on the doubts. Now, in that Casino Royale movie,
have you ever seen?
With Daniel Craig. Wait, hold on a moment. I want to get to a point here that's going to answer your question.
Oh, okay.
In that Casino Royale movie, we get for the first time kind of a challenge to James Bond's charming ethos. And I think you're referring to the woman who's in the shower. That's the character Vesper. And the Vesper is the one he encounters on a train, and who's going to work with him. She's the accountant, and she's going to make sure he's going to spend the money okay, and whether he's a good investment for this poker tournament or not. And they have this back and forth on the train where Bond has his most charming lines, and she throws it back at him and doesn't show. She shows interest, but shows no intention of sleeping with him, of being with him, of being romantic with him.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, when it's made clear, she asks him, "How is your lamb?" And he says, "Skewered. One can sympathize." And so that line where the response to that rejection that James Bond is showing, making a witty repartee back to her.
Yeah.
You rejected me. I'm going to make a little bit of a flippant joke about it, but I appreciated that and the security and the self-possession that he has, even when he is being turned down.
Yeah, absolutely. That only goes so far with him. And part of self-confidence is that it's, with the self, and he understands that he doesn't have, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to react to him, but he still is confident and has esteem.
Yeah.
He values himself. And it's, that I think is what self-esteem basically is.
Exactly. And if M calls him up and says, "Hey, there's a bad guy that you need to capture," he's going to break his date and go for that. So I was also thinking, Kirk, about,
Hold on. Have you seen the movie True Lies?
Yes. With Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just, there's an interesting, cause you're talking about your night there, in the summer with this beautiful woman. And there is the approach.
It wasn't a night. It was could have been. Yeah.
And so there is the approach that you remember the sleazy car salesman guy who pretends to be the suave salesperson, or the suave spy guy that takes away Jamie Lee Curtis, the wife of the real spy.
I honestly don't, but I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Go ahead.
But it's just a funny moment. Like one way so there are like con artist type guys who are like, they basically what he does to Jamie Lee Curtis is he sees this hot chick at a coffee shop, or she's at a diner by herself or whatever. And it's young Jamie Lee Curtis. He walks up to her like in a hurry, with, you know, his suit's kind of a little ruffled, and he says, you know, someone's coming after me. I need you to, and he gives her this briefcase or something like that, and then gets out of there. And then he basically, you know, plays out this role with her
Yeah,
of being a
yeah, yeah,
spy,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Meanwhile, her husband's a real spy.
yeah,
And you know, but she doesn't know it because he
yeah.
can't let
No,
her
I
know, right?
remember now.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it's a whole thing, but that's one approach that you could just pretend to be a spy next
No,
time. And you could just literally
that's informative.
fake it.
Yes, and that would be somebody. I think that's interesting. I think that's a bigger conversation, but it's the difference between channeling somebody and trying to be somebody.
Yes.
And so
It's
what
a
he's
con
trying to do,
man.
yeah,
It's a
he's trying
confidence
to
man,
be something that he's
right?
not.
Yes.
Whereas you're channeling, you're trying to feel the feel viscerally what it was like that you experienced when you saw that character do this.
Yeah.
Um,
And to
so-
internalize it, like to
Yeah.
be it, not to exude it in a fake way,
yeah,
but to
Yeah.
really become that kind of confidence where you feel that you don't have to pretend, right? You fake it, but you fake it till you make it, but you've made it at that point.
yeah. This is a topic I want to like explore a lot more. I love this thought of how do you inspire yourself with characters. So I was trying to think of, okay, what are the other kinds of heroes that are out there that might help or characters that I look up to? They're kind of like James Bond, but are not quite it, to get a little bit more precise idea of what James Bond is like. And I was looking back at our previous Surprised by Art episodes and seeing some characters that were kind of close. Yeah, Kirk, do you remember the episode on Righteous Defiance, where there's that aristocrat who is
he protecting the tulip?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. And so I thought, oh, there's a lot of
Tulip
qualities of James Bond in this.
Yeah.
Where you have somebody who is absolutely stylish, who is competent, who is ready. And I was trying to think, okay, what's different about James Bond from him?
I don't see anything different. What do you see? I think he's a great embodiment of that.
Oh, so yeah,
protective nature. I could see like the pot is Vesper, right? He's gonna protect. She's an innocent little flower, and you know, no, she's not really innocent, but you get it. She's
No, I think that's an important point. She's definitely not innocent. I think she's on par with him. So the thing is that it gets to that, and I bet there are scenes where James Bond like is being protective, but this doesn't strike me as what gets to James Bond for me. I don't really see James Bond as a protector or somebody who's defiant. I see him more as being smooth in social situations and capable, and not the one who's a fighter against the world. Well, I don't see him as a Cyrano de Bergerac.
He's definitely not Cyrano de Bergerac, but so he's remember that there's one of the Daniel Craig movies where the woman in charge, I forgot her name, M, she's reading Tennyson at the end.
Yeah.
And you know those last lines of Ulysses poem she's reading, and she's reading about, you know, we are not that strength of times, right? But we are that which we are. And that I do think represents, especially the Daniel Craig version of it, and these last ones where he's kind of getting older, but he still has that kind of righteous, like at least the defiance part where it's like, you will not pass this point. You could do whatever you want to me, but you know, I'm the wall that you cannot get past. And that's what I see when I see him, this guy protecting this tulip.
And I think probably that there's more of that in the recent James Bond movies
than the original
than the original ones. Yeah.
Because he's kind of old school in this new world. The Daniel Craig, especially post Casino Royale. I think a lot of them, that's kind of a big theme is you have this. And I think it seems like that might be even happening in this new movie.
I'll be curious. Yeah. So, and then there's another artwork that made me think of like a heroic masculine figure who's taking on the bad guys. Do you remember the one about I think it was Struggle, heroic struggle, a statue of a young athlete fighting a serpent.
Yeah. You know, this one makes me think though. So this is it's for those of you listening, we go to troubadourmag.com and we'll have all these images, but this is an athlete with a big snake wrapped around his leg behind his back, and he's holding the head out in front of it. He's very muscular, and it's this intense struggle. And it makes me think of the movie Pierce Brosnan when he's fighting, maybe it might even be GoldenEye. He's fighting the woman, and she's this woman who kills men by squeezing them to
Oh
death
yeah, with her legs.
with her legs. That, talk about a metaphor, right? So she, like, you know, and then she's like squeezing James Bond, but of course he gets out of it and eventually wins.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's an intense struggle where you got this,
Yeah.
like her strong thighs around his
Yeah.
neck.
So this that happens, and James Bond is in those situations. But
Yeah.
what separates, I don't see this as James Bond either.
Mm,
I don't see, you know, in the midst of struggle and fighting, there are lots of scenes like that, but that's not the image of James Bond that I retain as
it's not his
the
essence.
functional, the essence for me and what's useful
Yeah.
for me in my life.
That makes sense.
I've got other characters that
I
I
agree
can
with you.
rely on that. So, Kirk, we've been chatting a while here, and I know I've got to go and teach class soon. So shall we get to some art?
Sure. Well, wait, how soon? I need to know.
I've got maybe another 45 minutes, 40 minutes. Okay. All right. So I've got a painting for you. And this one, I had a long time trying to figure out, okay, what makes me think of that spirit of James Bond that I gravitate towards, that dashing suaveness, the self-confidence, capability, the one who could be in a tuxedo yet shoot the bad guys while he's on a motorcycle, jumping off a plane, whatever it is. That combination of ability and style and confidence that's exuded from that. And I had a hard time looking back at the history of art to find somebody that depicted that for me, or a scene that depicted that for me. But I've got something. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. You know, I'm going to ask you what your first quick title is, and then start to read it for us.
Try to be more confident this time.
First words. What?
Sunday drive.
Okay, great. All right. What do you see
Saturday,
going on?
Weekend drive. So it's very interesting. I've seen this before.
Describe it to us.
I'm describing, yeah. So it seems like a 1920s style car. It's very hard for me to tell though, because it's only a portion of the car. We're just seeing, so it's a young woman with I think she's wearing a glove. I don't know what that could be. She's wearing this golden glove, and she has this really long flowing silver scarf that covers under her neck, and then this interesting cap. Again, I'm thinking like flapper, and she's in this like green vehicle that I feel like it doesn't have a windshield, if I can understand. It just has like this visor piece of glass, if I'm seeing this correctly. And that's basically it. Her face is very like she's not even looking at the road. It's almost like she's looking off screen to you or something to the side. And the way it looks like she's kind of leaning back, like those rappers from the 90s that, like when you had those, they were kind of, that's where we all got that cool stuff, right? That's where that came from. You're just like, boom, and you're just kind of like,
great.
And she's just very casual. Her hands are barely touching. There's not. I remember the first time I drove ever, and I was like gripping the steering wheel so tight, I almost ripped it out of its.
Yeah.
My dad was like, "Calm down, like loose it." Like she is like completely loose. She has full control. And again, she's just like leaning back, barely even putting any effort into what she's doing. And again, she's pushing this vehicle forward, or she could just be sitting there. Although it does seem, because like there's not wind blowing into that hair, so maybe she's just modeling it. I don't know. She could just be sitting in a parking lot waiting, for someone to notice that she has this big flowing scarf. but she has this like it's you can't even see her dress. You just see like her face and her head, and then under that where her neck would be is this big flowing scarf.
What would make more sense, that she's just sitting in the parking lot, or that she's
No,
driving
she's
by?
driving. Yeah. No, for sure driving. But it's just funny because it's just like, there's no, I mean, I guess the air could be blowing that scarf around. It just, I would think that her hair would also blow, but I guess her hair is
It's
immune.
covered by this cap.
Well, but even the hair that's out, like even my little beard hairs fly when my windows open. My windows open, like beard hair just like.
Oh my goodness!
You got something. She's not. There's nothing happening to her hair.
I see some strands that are falling off each other. I can imagine maybe a little bit of fluttering.
Right. But definitely the scarf looks like there might be air in the car.
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining. That she's driving by it at high velocity, but as you pointed out, with her hands, there's just a casual grip, and she's not even looking at the road. In fact, she's looking at us. And if we push play on this, that glance is not going to last. It's going by quick. She's just turned her head to just
until she sees
take
me
a look at you
pushing up a whole bunch of weight. Then she's going to turn that car around and be like, oh, look at that guy. He just squatted a lot of weight.
All right. Do you get any hints that she looks sophisticated?
Yeah, I mean, she's got a bucket on her head. I guess in the 20s that was sophisticated.
Oh, come on. No, that's a terrible word.
I don't. Yeah, but look at that.
Okay,
she's got like
that.
a
This is
bucket
1920s.
strap.
You got something, but any details that look sophisticated?
So I mean, the scarf, and I'm joking about the bucket. It's just an interesting strap that it has, and it's like a very tight helmet.
It's not something that you would normally see like a beautiful woman wearing, right? Maybe that's odd.
Yeah.
But what other details of sophistication do you see?
Well, it definitely seems like it's designed. It's not just the hat that she's wearing or the helmet. Not even might be a stylish protective helmet, but because it's got like this curve to it, right? It's not just something you buy. When I say
that's
bucket,
true.
I'm
it's
just
like
joking. It's something that's designed. It's a very stylistic design of a helmet to protect her if she gets in an accident. She has these, looks like maybe leather gloves on. I think that's her gloves again.
I mean, you call them golden gloves. I like that.
Golden, yeah.
It looks like like rich leather, especially in the wrist portion.
But I think it's also the look on her face that makes it all look.
What's the look on her face?
Just again, the kind of, she's got these big red lips and.
I mean, those red lips. I mean, the lipstick. Wow.
Yeah. Intense red, right?
Yep.
And again, she's got these big eyes that are just and there's just something worldly, sophisticated.
They're narrowed, right?
She knows. Yeah, she kind of knows something.
She's not a wide-eyed girl. Like, wow, exactly. I'm driving this car, and it's no.
She's seen some stuff, right?
Yeah.
She's done some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's good with the world, or she knows the world. I don't, whether she's happy or not is a different discussion right now. That's kind of not even relevant. She just feels like, and I see confidence for sure.
I think of you when one of my favorite things about driving a motorcycle, Kirk, and you've got experience with this, is feeling the wind around me, is driving on my own.
And my beard hair.
Beard hair flowing in the wind.
Flowing beard hair.
But that feeling of kind of flying, and
like
one of the times that I felt like James Bond was a time when I in order to get to, there was some kind of nice event I was going to, and I went in my suit and tie on my motorcycle.
Oh, nice. I would not do that, but that's pretty cool.
Because
I would get like just bugs on me, depending on how far you have to go. But yeah, like going like at night on the Highway 1 or something, and you just like going fast, and you just, there's a moment when you kind of forget almost, maybe sound unsafe, but you almost forget like you're driving, you feel like you're flying.
Yeah.
And I could see her, and it's a kind of a magical moment of, the beauty of a motorcycle. And again, I don't think she has any window there's like no protection.
I think you're right. I had noticed that, but there's like this is maybe an early car that doesn't even have the front windshield, and it's just got this little thing there that's
protect from like the rain or something, or maybe that's why she has a helmet of sorts, right? Because she doesn't have a seatbelt. This is before seatbelts.
Yep.
So you got to wear your helmet in case you.
Okay, so if you pulled off that scarf and imagine what she was wearing underneath.
I definitely want to know what she's like underneath.
I
She's very sexy. Yes.
Well, okay, yes, but I can imagine like she's not wearing a tracksuit.
Oh yeah,
She-
yeah.
She's
I
wearing
don't even care what she's wearing.
a
She's
cocktail
just,
dress or something. Those red lips,
yeah.
and I maybe
see
she's
what I'm
got some
saying, though?
eyeliner. Yep.
So I get
I
what
do.
you're saying, but like I don't care if she was wearing a tracksuit. She would own that tracksuit.
Yeah, she would.
She would
Okay.
look
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You know, she would look great. But
Yeah.
you're
Like
probably
you're saying,
right
James
because,
Bond would be great naked. It doesn't.
yeah. Well, you
she
said
looks-
that, but
yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying like, yeah, you put him in a scuba gear. He does not, he does wet work. He does commando. He's
Yeah.
flying out of, he's jumping out of a plane, like high altitude.
Whatever
low,
he's
open,
wearing,
whatever
he
does,
looks like he's wearing a tuxedo.
A tuxedo all the time, just like
So
her.
you want to know the title of this painting?
Yeah, and where have I seen this?
Oh, I'm sure you've seen it. It's around. So this is Self-Portrait in a green Bugatti by Tamara de Lempicka. Tamara de Lempicka, an early 20th century
Wow.
Polish painter who spent a lot of time in Paris and here, I think in Italy. So Tamara de Lempicka, this is how she saw herself.
I like it. Well, I wish I would have met her.
And green Bugatti. And I think the thing that does it really for me is, as I've been looking at this, that makes me think really James Bond, besides the fact she looks sophisticated. This is kind of her version of tuxedo in a tank, but also it's the fact that she's glancing over at us as she's driving by, like she's saying, well, I'm curious, Kirk, what could she be saying to you as she drives by?
Well,
I mean, look at me.
No, definitely not. Is that no? I mean, I think it's just a kind of casual interest, like, oh, look, there's something there, but it's not to the degree of like excitement. It's just there's something, and it's cool that something grabbed her attention because most things probably don't. Most things it's like if I walked by her, she wouldn't look anywhere near me, right? She wouldn't. I would not be enough to grab her attention. Although I should, because I could just again bench a whole bunch in front of her and then she'll go, ooh. But like in general speaking, so it's like there's some event, or maybe there's another, there's a man by her, or she sees another car that captures her attention.
Driving by this. Okay. Well, you know what this is making me think of? Your description of what she might or might not be looking at in her attitude. It's reminding me of that James Bond image as he's leaning up against the counter, looking over at Sylvia Trench, and that kind of casualness. Yeah, I've turned to you, but I'm not. It doesn't matter that I'm not going to show more. Yeah, that kind of self-possession and self-confidence. I see that exuded in her, that sexy self-confidence. I see it just like I see it in James Bond.
Yeah.
So this is a funny one because Kirk, I both want to be her and date her.
Yeah, I don't think of like wanting to be her. I definitely want to sleep with her, though, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, that's one way that Leonard Peikoff approaches art and literature. I don't know if you ever taken his course, Great Plays.
Great Plays, yeah.
Yeah. So like he had, and that was one of the things that always stuck with me among all the great things he said. But that was one of them, is like, which female character would you want to sleep with? And when you only have words, you don't have the figure there. And so that forces you to think about it in a different, way. And, so I do approach art that way sometimes. But yeah, so I think it would be a fun night with her for sure. If I could convince her to look my way for a few seconds.
Well, to channel her in order to be able to ask her out.
Why would channel Bond to ask her?
There you go.
Yeah,
either way.
You can channel whoever you want.
Okay,
yeah.
Kirk, are you ready to share a poem with me?
Yeah, so this will be an interesting one. You know this poem for sure. It's called If by Rudyard Kipling. And you know this poem, right?
I do, but I haven't heard you read it before, Kirk. And you know how much I love your mellifluous voice.
Well, thank you. You're giving me lots of confidence. But yeah, so I'll read it. And this is one thing I do like about it is you don't need a lot of, it's easy to understand to some degree, but it's infinitely rereadable. Okay, so let me go ahead and read it. It's If by Rudyard Kipling. Let's skip that. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 minutes worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Thank you.
It's a good one.
All right. So
yeah.
what's the theme of this poem for you?
I think this is the internal requirements, conditions of manhood, masculinity, and not biologically, but culturally. And again, I think psychologically, masculinity. And that's what because it's giving you all these conditions. If you do this, if you do that, if you do this, these are conditions you have to do in order to this final, statement. Then, it's an if, basically this is one big if then statement. If you do these things, then you'll be a man, my son. And it's,
but what is, so I guess that to get it to the theme maybe is, what does it mean to be a man?
Yeah.
What is this poem saying?
So
is there something that's consistent that's throughout? Is there one concept that unites it all?
That's a good question. Actually, so each of these stanzas has a different, and I did this a long time ago, I haven't done it in a while, but this one, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming on you, these are basically statements about how to deal with living in the world or how to deal with your own consciousness. So you should dream, you should think, but you shouldn't make thoughts your aim. You shouldn't make dreams your masters, right? So these are basically just requirements or almost philosophical guidance. Now, what unites all of them? I mean, like I said, each stanza, this first one has to do with dealing with other people, lied about, dealing in lies, being hated, not hating. These are things that we all do deal with, right? We deal with people hating us, and it's so easy to want to hate them. But, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating. That's good advice, I think, to anybody. If you can bear to hear the truth. So, I'm talking about poetry or philosophy, and people use my words and twist it against me, and that, ad hominem attacks. You can't let that hurt you. And then advice about living actually a career and building a life, take risks, risk it all one time. If it's the right moment, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start over, right? How many people?
I know. Well, okay. So I think that the important part of that, the important part of that one for me is never breathe a word about your loss. It's you can go through everything about what fate deals to you, whether you win or you lose, but the underline is your even keel.
Yeah.
Okay. So Yeah, it's I like it. There's a lot of different philosophical advice that's being given, which adds up to this is advice that he's given his son. The narrator's given his son.
Yeah.
Um, and I've got a theory about how it all unites, but I don't want to get to that
Oh,
yet. I want to
I want
ask
to hear
you,
that.
um,
Can't wait.
what made you think of James Bond with this, or are there any particular parts that especially make you think of James Bond?
Well, so there are some that definitely don't deal with him necessarily, although like I don't see him as a dreamer. If you could dream and not make dreams your master, that's not something I think of with him. But I mean, he's constantly having to keep his head about him. And I like, if you can walk, he can talk with crowds, he can walk with kings. Like I see him able to, slum it, excuse me, or, talk to the president. Excuse me. So these I think are the internal guidances to give you the fortitude to be James Bond, not to be like him or to pretend or to fake it or to be like the True Lies guy. But this is like the internal fortitude that is James Bond is, if you could force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and to hold on when there is nothing in you except the will, which says to them, hold on. I mean, there's always, especially in the Daniel Craig ones, but I think in all of them, there's always that moment when it's like most men would quit this fight to find the spot, like just James Bond is getting tortured or something, and he's going to still, he escapes and he's still going to go and finish his mission. He's not going to give up. Right. And I just think that this is the kind of generally internal compass that guides James Bond.
Okay. No, I there's a phrase you used, internal fortitude. And I like that. And I think that for me gets to what unites all these little pieces of advice. Because I think all the situations or scenarios, most of them involve other people or destiny. Like when you go out into the world and you encounter other people, whether it's kings or crowds or friends or foes, or it's things that happen to you, how do you react to that when you encounter all those different obstacles in the world? And it's saying, well, react to that with this internal fortitude, with this self-possession, with this self-esteem. Rely on that. And if you have that at your core, then you're going to make it through.
Yeah.
Here's another question, Kirk. What connections do you see between this poem and the painting of Tamara de Lempicka's self-portrait in a Bugatti?
Yeah. Well, I definitely see her being able to keep her head about her. I can imagine her doing that. Like I could imagine, the old phrase, water off a duck's back type thing, right? Like she seems like that type of person, which is, I think what this first stanza is kind of talking about is like all this stuff that people, so I can imagine like people would not be able to, slut shame her, right? If she slept with them, she'd be like, she would not, that's something that I know a lot of women deal with. I could not imagine her caring at all. She's going to sleep with who she wants to sleep with. She's going to do it the way she wants to. She wants to sleep with a woman. She'll sleep with like she has no. I just cannot fathom her having any kind of unconfidence.
Sounds like you've read the biography of Tamara de Lempicka.
No, but I could just imagine from that.
Well, you got it.
Yeah, and I mean, I could just imagine like I know in talking with women like or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Like that's not something she would do. That in that character. How she would meet with triumph and disaster, if she would treat those two imposters just the same, I don't know, actually. I mean, there are some, that one I don't know. I mean, I feel like she's prepared for triumph or disaster. If her car got sideswiped and she, had both her legs broken, how would she deal with that? And she lost all her money or something? I don't know. Maybe she'd be
wow. Fine. That got grim real quick.
Well, I mean, life is grim sometimes, right? Like if she can risk everything, would she be the type of person to risk everything? that these are questions that it's a little harder for me to tell that. What do you think? Like, do you think that from that painting, you could tell she would be able to risk everything
I don't even
and then
think
lose?
it doesn't even enter the equation for me. It's like I don't even think of James Bond as having his legs broken in an accident. There's that one
But he
scene
has.
and that in Casino Royale where there's this torture scene.
Yeah.
For me, that's not in the same universe as the James Bond that I know. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. So I was thinking about this poem in relation to James Bond, and therefore in relation to Tamara de Lympica self-portrait. And the feeling I had is, oh, this is James Bond's education. This is his dad talking to James Bond.
Yeah, but he's young.
This is not what James Bond is thinking to himself now. Yeah. What I'm seeing about James Bond now in the movies is the result of having practiced these habits.
Yep.
He embodies what this poem is trying to get you to.
Yep.
So that's kind of I see that, and I see that with Tamara de Lympica self-portrait as well.
Yeah, I guess I don't see it as much. It's harder from just a painting. But maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm thinking about the Daniel Craig ones that we've been talking about, like Watch the Things You Gave Your Life to Broken. Like the whole thing that's happening in a lot of those stories is, like M is being taken in front of like the courtroom at the end. They're questioning everything.
That's in Skyfall.
Skyfall.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's one of my favorites. Because again, it's kind of a throwback, and it's saying like in this new world, we still need these kind of suave, sophisticated individuals to go and do the dirty work, essentially. And so, Watch the Things You Gave Your Life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. That to me is like Skyfall theme.
Yeah.
Right there,
and I think the more recent movies, they went and delved into James Bond as more of a character, as a human being. And I think I've never really seen James Bond as a character or human being, or as a human being before with the struggles that went to life. I've always seen him as a vision of something that I can channel, that I could possibly be myself, and not necessarily, how did you become the person you are? And the recent movies have explored that. How did he become the person that he is, or what are his internal conflicts? Treating him more like Don Draper from Mad Men. And so, but I've always seen him more as, here's Indiana Jones, and we're not getting into, even though the movie's kind of hinted at that, but we're just focusing on the end result of this person as we're seeing him. I'm getting to know him pretty. Yeah. What's that?
He's basically a symbol.
Kind of a symbol. Yeah.
Right.
For somebody that I know a little bit about. I've seen him at a party and I'm like, wow, that guy is cool. I wish I could be him in this moment. And what I'm saying is I don't know him fully, but I do see how he reacts in certain situations, and that's what I'm gravitating towards.
When you're saying with these newer movies, like with Casino Royale, you get, by the way, I think a lot of those are in the books. Like the Vesper thing. Now, I haven't read the books. I read a little bit about them in preparation, but I do think there's some of that in the books, like the fact that, the love that he lost, that kind of is a psychological explanation for these movies where he's just a womanizer, right? And you always wonder, why is he such a womanizer? Well, you learn that he was seriously betrayed, right? That's the whole point.
And here's the deal. When I was growing up as a kid, a teenager, and in young adulthood, and even now, I never thought of him as a womanizer. I just thought, wow, he's got this confidence with the ladies that I want to try to emulate in some way. Can I emulate that? What does it mean to be like that?
Sure.
Okay. So one last thing I want to bring back is that Vesper scene, because I think that Vesper scene on the train where I think the writers were thinking of Vesper as kind of like the alter ego to James Bond. Here's the female version of James Bond. And she's the one that he falls in love with and has a relationship with, and it doesn't go so well in the end. But the way that she is makes me think this is the female version of him. And I want to be like her. And you know what? Also, Kirk, that's the kind of woman I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to Vesper. I like her more than any of the others. Even the one who's like fights him with trying to kill him with, squeezing him with her legs. They try. I think in the earlier movies they tried to make the female romance interest kind of somebody that would be hard for James Bond to get. But I that might be my favorite scene, romantic scene in any of the James Bond movies. The one with Vesper, maybe in any movie, that kind of repartee where you're seeing this. I'm somebody with my sense of self that's a certain way with this self-confidence. And now I'm encountering somebody with that same self-confidence who has that self-worth, not to be just a fling with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like her. I want to be her, but I also want to sleep with her.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for letting me on the couch there, Kirk.
The psychiatrist couch.
That's right. Thanks for clarifying that.
We weren't on any kind of other couches.
What do you think we learned today?
Well, I mean, for me, it was, again, a good image of confidence and self-confidence and what that looks like in a portrayal. And then, something we didn't get to go into a lot, but I think you touched on, which is really, really, really valuable. And I talk about it all the time. It's one of the deep values. Ayn Rand pointed this out as a fundamental value of art, is that emulation process. And it's a process you have to take on that, Luke is pointing at. He does this in a lot of our shows, but you have to do some work sometimes. You have to think about, who is James Bond? What's his character? Then you can emulate that, which means to kind of take on those characteristics yourself. And I think that is a very valuable exercise. And I think the poem hopefully will help with that a little bit. And then, again, with that painting and the other paintings he showed of and then James Bond, when you're thinking about putting yourself in a situation where you're not confident, think about those characters. How would they act? And then, as Ayn Rand put it, faster than your mind can, figure out or process consciously, you'll have a kind of, oh, he would be this kind of suave. He would, you wouldn't even have to think about it. You've already integrated.
James Bond helps me feel sexy.
Yeah.
Kirk, it's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Make sure, so Luke, you have, just real quick, you have a project. Let's make sure you tell everybody about that
sure.
project.
Stories in Paint, my new upcoming book. And if you want to join the project and participate in online salons and find out more about the book, you can find me on Facebook at Stories in Paint, the Facebook group, or you can find me at touchingtheart.com/storiesinpaint, touchingtheart.com/storiesinpaint. Thank you, Kirk.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.